Hey everybody, my name is David Spark. I am the host and the producer of the CISO series video chat. Welcome. We're going to have a super fun show. I've got two great guests. I'm going to introduce them to you in just but a moment. Right now I am going to, there they are. It's Dave Bittner, the producer and co-host of the Cyberwire, and Carol Terrio, who's the producer and co-host of the Smashing Security podcast. I want to mention that our topic for today is hacking cyber media, an hour of critical thinking about how media companies are reporting in cyber news. And it just so happens Dave, Carol, and myself are all in the cyber media, so it'd be appropriate to discuss. There's no sponsor for today's episode at all. I didn't think there was a way I was going to promote this enough the first week of the year, so we're sponsor free for today. But if you're interested in sponsorship, you can always contact me. I'll give you that info at the end of the show. But here are the ways to participate if you don't already know how to do just that. Make some comments in the chat room. Submit your bad ideas on our topic today, which is hacking cyber media. Or join us on video at any time with a bring me on right in the chat. And Andrew, the producer, will try to get as many of you on video as possibly can. Also, ask a question anytime and vote for your favorite question. All right, here's the schedule. First 20 minutes, we're going to answer questions, submit your bad ideas. Then we will put a poll live and you will vote for your favorite bad idea. At 30 minutes past the hour, we'll play the Department of Yes. Right after that, we will play What's Worse and our winner from our last Best Bad Idea, which is Larry Rosen. Our topic was hacking the crown jewels, and Larry's suggestion was, before a meeting starts, everyone gets kicked in the crown jewels. Great advice, Larry. He will pick the two bad ideas that will go face-to-face in a What's Worse challenge. Lastly, you will vote for your favorite questions, and then final advice. And then at the end of the hour, we will have our icebreaker as well. All right, let's get into it. Oh, and by the way, there is a link at the bottom of the screen that says, join us next Friday, January 15th, for Hacking Data Intelligence. Click that at any time to register for next week's video chat. It will not take you out of this video chat. All right, Carol and Dave. By the way, Dave will go by Dave. I will go by David if there's any confusion here right now. Does anyone call you David, by the way, Mr. Bittner?
Only my mother and a handful of ex-girlfriends.
Okay. That's why they're ex-girlfriends?
I call them D-Dog, so maybe we can adopt that for this session.
D-Dog, why not? Spelled D-A-W-G, I'm assuming?
Of course.
There we go. All right. Let's just take sort of a couple of high-level questions. And please, people, everyone, submit your questions. If you want to come on and ask one, go right ahead. What do you think are the responsibilities of, I'm going to talk first about the tech media, and then we'll talk about mainstream media. But what do you think the or answer it both ways, actually. Let's put it that way. What do you think the responsibilities are for tech media and mainstream media when it comes to reporting cybersecurity? And obviously, this is a big question, and we'll step down into it. But just give me your overarching. We'll start with you, Dave.
I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, I think you have to be clear in distinguishing what's known from what's not known. And distinguishing fact from speculation and opinion. And also, I think you have to understand the importance of confirming your stories. So I you gotta get the facts right. You have to do the work.
All right. Is that any different than regular journalism in any stretch? Or
no, I don't think so. I mean, I think there's I think when you get into a domain, you expect more expertise on the topic. I think you end up with more nuance when you're speaking to a group of people who know the lingo and know the secret handshakes and all that sort of thing. You can have more nuance, and I think the way that you present things. I think that, not to skip ahead, but I think that's a problem that mainstream media has when talking about things like cyber, is they often don't get some of the nuance that's built into the topic that
it's a chronic problem
to know. Yeah,
that's a chronic problem. Carol, what's your take on again, we're just talking responsibility, and again, there's different levels of responsibility for tech media and mainstream.
No, absolutely there is. And, to Dave's point, the lingo thing is a ginormous barrier for people that consume generalist topics. Like I don't know anything about cars. I will read an article in the New York Times or some media, mainstream media about cars. I don't know nothing about Dave, D-Dog, knows a lot about cars, right? So he'll be finding flaws in that in the same way that we all do in cyber stories in the mainstream press. So that language barrier is very important because it keeps people out of the tech press. Right? It means that some people kind of read an article and have no idea what's going on. Whereas people like us and our listeners, right? We're kind of like, yeah, we know what that means. We know what DDoS means. We know what firewall is. We know these terms. And so we can get into the nuts and bolts better. We can get into the guts of it.
Right. But I would also say that even within this, you say, oh, they know what these terms mean. But I would say that it even gets alienating within the cyber security community because there are so many acronyms, there's so many sort of inside terms, there's so many sort of groups that are out there and I've run into this myself where they will have an inside joke and say, oh, it's our thing, you're not clued to it kind of thing, not welcoming people. And I've run into this many, many, many times.
Okay,
Yes.
But I will just say to that, I have gone to a number of different conferences in the medical field, financial area, in tech, and guess what? Every single industry has that because when you start dealing with information in depth, you've got to have a term.
But if you would go to, I'm assuming you don't know a lot about medicine. Yeah, are we assuming?
No, but I did work in the industry for a bit before.
You don't assume that if you walk into a group and everyone's a doctor and you're not, that they're all going to sudden dumb down their conversation for you. They're not. But what is insulting is if you are in the medical profession and they're really going out of their way to make it clear that you are not part of this group, that we have an isolated joke that you're not included in, and not saying, hey, by the way, this is what we're talking about. I've had that happen to me, and I'm in cybersecurity. I've had that happen to me many times. Dave, has it happened to you?
Yeah, I think when that happens, quite often folks are taking advantage of the fact that most people are uncomfortable saying, I don't know what that means, or could you explain that to me? And that's something that I think, I don't know, maybe it's just over the years I've gotten past the ego of that, where I have no problem saying to someone, I don't know what that means. Could you explain that to me? And usually if you're willing to do that in that particular group, that often diffuses it because you've broken the spell. And if you do it in a sort of a non-defensive way and not not angry, but say, I'm sorry, I'm really trying to understand here. Can you explain to me what that means? Now it's up to them to be the expert and explain what that really means.
I will also make a suggestion, and I've done this in the complete reverse, where I've had someone explain something extraordinarily technical to me, and I say, okay, I'm going to repeat back what you said to me in my words. Tell me if I'm getting this right or wrong. And that I have found, that technique alone has been extraordinarily powerful because they will probably hit me with a heavy load of jargon. I'm not going to tell the story the way they told it. I'm trying to digest it in my head and say, all right, how am I going to retell this to my listeners, to my audience, so they understand this better? But I'm not 100% sure I understand this. I have found that has worked extraordinarily well. Have you done something similar, Carol?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good idea. But I think also, I don't know if people are actually, when they're talking with jargon, they're not trying to push people out of the conversation. I think, well, in the times that's happened to me, it's just that they have a shorthand.
Yeah,
it's a shorthand, right? And we all have it. And I think, to both your points, if you assume it's a shorthand and you're able to go, I don't understand that one. But I think that does come with age, right? I think when I was new to the industry, like in my 20s, and I was trying to impress everybody that I could do the job, and I wanted to seem worthy and smart and capable and all that. You don't want to say you don't know stuff. And you're, in fact, basically, in my time anyway, university and everything, the whole thing is basically like, fake it till you make it. And I'm totally against that. I think if kids could come in and go, hey, I've just come out of university. I don't know much, but I'm here to learn. I'm a sponge. Let's go. That's the way to present it. But it's hard to do that mentally, I think.
I think there is I think, Carol, I think you're right. I think usually you can key in pretty quickly if someone's trying to be exclusionary. There's a I don't know, a rhetorical way of doing things that drives me nuts, where people just sort of hang something out there because they want you to ask the question. They'll say, well, at least it's not the thing that has to do with widget X, and then they'll stop. You're like, okay,
my entire family does that constantly.
We all want to know about widget X. Please tell us about widget X, like that sort of thing. And that I find annoying.
By the way, Paul Lanzi of Remedian asked a very good question. And by the way, I think he mentioned this one because I made this very mistake myself. And I've also made the mistake of referring to MITRE as Mitri the first time I did that. So sure. It happens. So he asks, is mispronunciation of standard cybersecurity terms, i.e. saying SAML instead of SAML, a reasonable way to judge cybersecurity journalists? Hey, there's one time we got to learn. And I have learned. So both of you shake your head. Have you made similar pronunciation mistakes, Dave?
I do it every day. And here's the thing. I would hazard to say, because my main gig is doing a daily podcast that is quite often breaking news. And so that involves new APTs, new malware, all that sort of stuff. I would hazard to say that I am quite often among the first people to say a word out loud. Where someone comes up with a clever name of an APT group that is an amalgamation of a couple of different things. They type it into their computer, but they don't actually say it out loud. And they don't consider that someday someone is going to have to say it out loud. And often that person is me. So we have...
so you are usually the... So we have to think you are the Lenny Bruce of cybersecurity journalists. That's the way I see it. He broke the mold for other comedians to be dirty on stage. You are the breaking the mold for the rest of us to not look stupid saying things. So we have to say thank you.
But we have conversations about it of and I mean, it can be GIF versus GIF. Let's not unpack that. But we have conversations about what do we think they were trying to do here? What's the word origin? Well, the Greek root is this, trying to figure out. And sometimes we guess wrong. A lot of times it's nice because you could actually call up the researcher and say, all right, what how would you pronounce this, Einstein? And just see where it goes. But I'll tell you, back to our thing about getting older, this is something I stressed about when I first started the podcast. I don't worry about it anymore because if I'm wrong, someone is going to correct me, and I accept that most people who are correcting me are doing so out of good faith and not out of malice. And so I'm happy to learn something new and be corrected and get it right from now on.
By the way, and we're, for example, we got an angry email just yesterday or this morning. When I'm saying this morning, because we did a broadcast of a new show we're testing out, Cybersecurity Headlines Week in Review, and the host Steve Prentice referred to Trump as Mr. Trump, not President Trump. He did say president sometimes, but on a few occasions referred to him as Mr. Trump. To which somebody called him out on that. And that's not cybersecurity specific, but I got to assume the two of you have been called out on things in the past in terms of explaining something incorrectly, pronouncing something incorrectly. How do you handle it? Let me start with you, Carol, on this.
Just say sorry. I don't really get as we say, knickers in a twist, when that happens.
Oh, by the way, I say that all the time, knickers in a twist.
Yeah. But you don't know everything. And I think actually the next generation, our generations now that are coming into the world, know that they don't know everything. I think maybe pre-internet, we may have had a bit more pressure to kind of walk into a field and act like we know what's going on. Whereas now we know the worlds are huge.
Is there a pattern to the way either of you, of the kinds of comments that you get? Yes, Dave, you're nodding your head?
Well, I think what often happens to us is we'll get an email from someone, and you can tell they're picking a fight. They're looking for you to respond and amplify the situation. And my experience is, whether it's via email or on Twitter or anywhere, if I respond graciously and say, thank you for pointing out the error, I'll try to do better in the future, or gosh, I really wish I'd done a better job with that. I appreciate you pointing it out.
It deflates them, doesn't it?
You've de-escalated the situation, because I'm not interested in fighting with someone or getting. I think too many people and too many parts of the internet are sort of they're built around this idea of this is how we're going to parry back and forth, and we're going to, everyone watch us fight each other, and that'll be entertaining. And I don't have the time or energy for that.
Well, there's sometimes, and that you do want your media to do that, to show a little conflict in a battle. Carol? Carol, excuse me. How do I pronounce your first name? How do I do it?
It's fine. You're doing great.
Pronounce it right for me.
Well, it's French Canadian. It's Carole. So
Carole.
that's how I say it.
Carole.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I keep screwing up. Carole.
It's fine. I'm not offended at all.
Go ahead.
Sorry, the question. Sorry.
Well, it's just like sometimes you want to create a little conflict, or you want to bring the conflict to light. What are venues, areas you want to do that?
Yeah. Our show, for example, Smashing Security, is all about bickertainment. That is actually the word that was coined for us to try and explain how we actually work. And Graham and I do it naturally. We scrap and then we make up within, maybe 4 times a day if we're actually having to interact every day. So, and then when people, we've never had actually, I'm trying to think if we've gotten a nasty email. We certainly had people going, oh, I didn't really like that angle of the story, or Carl, I didn't agree with you, or Graham, I didn't agree with you, but that's okay. And I tend to avoid, and you'll notice most people who follow the show know that I'm not really on social media. So, I'm not on LinkedIn, I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on these channels. So maybe that helps me. Maybe I'm not on them because I don't want to get into all the
I don't even know what that is. All right, we got more questions coming in. I have so Ian adds the classic asking for a friend at the end of this question. All right. How do you deal with panelists and interviewees who want to dominate the conversation, asking for a friend? Let me ask, if it's not going the way you want, Dave, how do you deal with it?
So if we're talking about somebody who won't allow you to get a word in edgewise. So we start with that,
or you can say word in edgewise, or just says you have a format and this is the way the show runs, and they come in like kind of bull in a china shop kind of attitude.
Yes. As I say, everybody wants to direct. You have to take control. I mean, it's ultimately it's my show. So you're a guest in my house and I set the ground rules. I think a big part of it is setting expectations ahead of time. Before I interview anyone, I go through and I say, this is what we're going to do. This is how long it's going to last. This will be the format. I tell them we're pre-recording. So if you mess up an answer, you can say it again and we will edit that for you because we're rarely live. I say, it's our goal to help make you sound your best, and we will also do that in the edit. So we go in with the ground rules set and trying to have a good faith conversation where they know I'm not coming at them from some sort of, 60 minutes angle. I'm not trying to dig up dirt or anything like that. That's not our beat.
Yeah.
So,
and I explain that when I do that, I explain that as well. It's, I'm assuming when you're dealing with guests, you also often have to deal with the PR department. And I'm trying to understand, what exactly are they afraid of? I don't know what's supposedly going to happen that they're afraid of.
I can, Carol, do you want to address that?
Yeah.
You mean like a guess what they're afraid of? I think it's a baptism of fire. Like, let's say this show, for example, right? So you get in touch with me, you say, come on, and you send me a few emails saying, yeah, we get it all done, sign this, register here, do this, let's go. And I'm in podcasting land, so I'm used to that. But for some of our guests that come on the show that we interview, it's their first time in front of a mic.
Yeah.
I've had people borrow their daughters' headphones so they could actually hear because they didn't have any in the house.
I've had that. Right? This is my son's gaming headset. I've had that many times.
Yeah. And these guys are, in a lot of times, these, people that are guests on the show, like guest hosts or people we interview, they're there as our guests. They're our VIP. So rather than set the parameters to them, I try and talk to them and say, this is what we like to do. What do you think? I want them to be comfortable and happy, right? Like I want them to feel like they can say anything because that's when the magic happens.
The other thing with the PR folks is that they're worried that you're going to go off in some direction that you hadn't previously agreed to. So you're going to talk about what you're talking about, and you're going to say, oh, listen, while I have you, one more thing. After we've established all this rapport with each other, how do you feel about abortion? like right, and you see the PR head explode. So that's what they're worried about. That's why they want to
right. But like, we never have anything. We never do anything out of left field like that. Anyways, let me just okay.
We don't, and so if you can establish a relationship with the PR people, so they know what you're about and what you're going to do and what you won't do, that's good for everybody. But first timers, they have to come in and they don't know what you're going to do.
I can tell a funny story about this, actually. Sure. So I used to do PR. I used to do PR for a company called Sophos, right? So for global PR. And then we had a new CEO come in, and I was bringing him to London to meet all the big nationals, right? So this is the Observer, the Guardian, the Times, whatever. And we're in a fancy hotel. We're in a meeting room, and the journos are coming in one after the other. And, the Observer journalist is there, and he's asking questions, and he asked a really hard question. Right. And the CEO looked at me, and I answered a completely different other question, which is PR 101, right? Give him something juicy, but answer a different question. And the CEO turned to me and said, "No, you misunderstood the question, Carol. What he asked was." And I just went, "Well, I tried. You go ahead. You deal with that one." So it can be really difficult.
I want to let everyone know that the poll is now up. The Best Bad Idea poll is now up. So please vote on it. And Larry Rosen, if you're listening, please pick your two favorite. Those will be our best bad, that's our What's Worst challenge. We'll be playing Department of Yes in just about 10 minutes. And I want to remind people, if you've not clicked the link at the bottom, hacking data intelligence, that is our topic for next week. And also, I didn't mention it, that we're going to be doing our icebreaker at the end of the hour. That's our one-on-one meetups, the random meetups that we have at the very tail end of the show. Please, we will make that link available at the very end of the show. In fact, the link at the bottom will change to that at the end as well. All right, let's go back to our questions. A lot of good questions have come in. All right, this one I really like from Yoad, who actually gave us a lot of good questions here, but this one in particular I like. How do you bridge the gap between talk business impact to me, but I'd like to be excited with your tech? How do you do that balance? And do you do the balance? Do you care? I mean, where do you stand on that? Dave or Carol?
So let's start with Carol, because I don't understand the question.
Okay, if I understand it correctly, I'm thinking you're saying, like, how do you talk to corporation B2B communications and do it with a kind of exciting, engaging, human-y way?
Well, it's like there's a technology that you have a vendor on, and they're talking about a technology, and I want to know tell me about this, but don't talk to me about all the artificial intelligence. Talk to me about why this thing is going to have an impact on my business. There's two stories there. Let's get in depth on how this AI system works, and the other of, well, why do I want this wonderful AI technology? What does it do to my business? So it's like there's two halves of the story. There's some audiences that only care, the engineers, let's just talk about the technology. And the others, they say, well, no, let's just only talk about the business impact.
A lot of these things are huge. That's the problem. So if you go into someone who sleeps, drinks, and eats this stuff every day, and we're looking for new windows in our house, right? So we went to a window place and we said, "Tell us about windows." 2 hours later, we came out of there. I've learned more about windows than I ever cared for. I was like, where, and had I gone in with a specific set of questions of things I really wanted to know, but the thing is you don't know what you don't know. Quote Dick Cheney. You don't know what you don't know. So the first meeting is always very difficult. And I think a really good communicator will try and assess the audience, right? Assess the person that's with you. Like, what do they need? Why are they asking? What's their budget? What's their objectives? And then that can help an expert tailor their messaging, I think. Do you agree, or are you looking at something else? You're reading the comments.
Well, I was actually reading the question, but I go to Dave on this right here.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to follow what your audience is expecting and what your audience is there for. I mean, one of the things, our standard over on CyberWire is we want to talk to people who have something to say, not just something to sell. So we don't do stories about products or services. If you're an expert on such and such, because you are in a particular area of cybersecurity, we want to get your perspective on that area because you know something about that other people don't because they're not in that area. That's the conversation we want to have. If you happen to mention along the way that there are many solutions to this problem. Ours is one of them, but there are many out there. We don't have a problem with that. But anyway, ultimately, I think you have to dial it into what you have established with your audience in terms of expectations. Is this a tech show? Is this a news show? Is this a general audience show? Calibrate it for that.
You know what? And by the way, the fact that you guys have a viewpoint, like your argumentative style, and also, this is a news show, or again, you guys have multiple shows for that matter. But having an editorial voice is very important. The problem I see with a lot of podcasters out there is turn the mic on, talk, turn it off. That's their editorial model. That's not an editorial model. And that, I mean, you're laughing. Yes. I mean,
well, I'm laughing. I think, yeah, but number one, isn't Joe Rogan still leading the podcast hill? He's on the top, isn't he?
Yeah,
and
but
he has it.
He doesn't, but he's a conversational style, and he has an editorial viewpoint in his, I mean, he's got very much a political stance, and that's why people listen to him. I think that's, like, you
mean more like the ask a question, get the answer, and say interesting. Ask the next question, get the answer.
Oh my God!
Wow, I started my career doing that. I did that for 2 years when I started.
Interesting.
Around our shop, what we joke about is that a high percentage of podcasts start out with "Hi Bob, hi Joe, how you doing? Doing good. How about you? Doing good. Good to be back. Yeah, it's great to be back. Good. How's the weather? Weather's great. Okay. And I'm like, get to the show.
I'd listen to that.
I drives me crazy. All right. So interesting you mentioned that. That is on our show, the CISO Security Vendor Relationship Podcast. It is for that reason, specifically, the show begins 10-second security tip, go. And the reason is when I was developing my show, I listened to a bunch of other podcasts. Between 2 to 9 minutes that's how long that nonsense went on for. 2 to 9 minutes. Nobody wants to hear that. No one does. Drives me crazy.
Unless that's a part of your shtick. I mean, if that is part of the entertainment value, fine. But if you're doing a cybersecurity show, I don't need that every week.
No, and nobody cares about your weekend. That's what I've learned. No one cares about your weekend. Could care less.
Well, I was going to tell you. Mine,
we are just 3 minutes away. If you have not voted on the poll, go vote on the poll. Larry Rosen, if you have not sent us, let me see if Larry has sent this. Larry, send us your 2 challenging bad ideas to Andrew, and we will we'll deal with that in our what's worse scenario. We will. Whoops. So I got a new webcam, because my other one died on me, and this is a subpar one, so I could get it. And I'm noticing the autofocus sucks on it. So I will, in a few weeks, I will have my other good webcam. So we're just dealing with this one for now.
That's a really good, there's a really good comment there from Jenna Preston. TLDR, all articles and shows should have them. And that's I like that a lot. Just having too long, didn't read, just a summary of the content. I also like the expectation of how, like in podcasts, how long you have to commit. Mm-hmm. But in articles, you don't always know. And occasionally there's a few places where they say 13 minutes read. Or
Pod News, I know, does that. Do you get that newsletter?
I love that.
Either?
Yeah, love it.
All right, we are just, we are just 2 minutes away from the Department of Yes game. So hang tight. Let's squeeze in one quick question right now. And then this one comes from Frank Reed. How concerned are you about putting something into the news stream that is ultimately wrong and can cause serious damage to company and its stakeholders? I'm going to throw this to you, Dave, first, because you, again, are often breaking news and maybe the first one to say something or somebody hasn't read. Do you have fear of that?
Sure. And there's a couple different ways to come at that. A big way to protect yourself against it is by being very specific about your attribution, which we are. We will say Reuters reported that such and such happened today. According to the Washington Post, such and such happened today. So that's one way. I think
the Pat Buck way.
No,
it's true. It's good.
But then the other side of it is, if you make a mistake, and we have made, before I get to that, if you establish a track record by not dealing in gossip, by not chasing after those stories, I believe you will win the benefit of the doubt. You'll win the goodwill of your audience. I remember a specific case where we got a fact wrong. There was no two ways about it. We were just wrong. We presented something incorrectly. And on the next day's show, I just laid it out. I said, this is what we said. This was correct. This is what we said. This was wrong. We try to do it right. We try to get it right. Sometimes we make a mistake. For that, we apologize. We're going to try to do better. Thank you for your patience. That's it.
You can't, you honestly can't do anything more than just that. You can't get into a fight mode. You can't defend. You just got to say, mea culpa, we screwed up, we move on. You can, and also, that's the other thing is, you can't be 100% perfect. Like, we try to be, but mistakes are made, and you can't let the house of cards collapse because of one single mistake. But what's interesting, I find, is that people in social media, that's their goal, I think. Do you get that sense? I see this in other media where they're trying to tear down other media by pointing out a mistake.
People are ready to pounce. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
sure
happens in the
I mean, it's
industry.
a joke. Oh my gosh, hold me back. Someone was wrong on the internet.
I listen to Dave's show all the time. Just look for a mistake so I can tweet it out.
Well, did you ever see?
Never happened. Never happened.
Conan O'Brien used to have a running gag on his show, like pointing out mistakes. Have you ever seen this bit he does?
Yes, it's great.
It's great, where people would point out mistakes, and then they do a comedy bit to prove that the mistake was actually something highly intentional. It's a very, very funny bit that they do.
Right.
All right, hold on. We just got a call came in.
Hello, welcome to the Department of Yes, where no request is ever rejected.
All right. There are some really good bad ideas in here. A couple of the very highly voted one we're actually going to do in What's Worse. So I'm actually going to not mention that because it's going to be in What's Worse. But here's a highly voted one. Again, the goal here in the Department of Yes is to explain why you want to do this, why it's a good idea. Please do not be facetious about this. Dave, I'll start with you on this. Let the sports writers cover cybersecurity. Why is this a good idea?
Oh, this is a great idea. Sports writers are very good at handling breaking news. They're very good at distilling things as they come in. They're very good with lingo. Sports is a male-dominated industry, so they'll be right at home in cybersecurity. This is a great idea. Sure.
All right. You did miss something. Carl, I'm hoping you get it. I'm giving you a yes. Why do you want sports writers doing this? Covering cyber. You don't know?
No, I'm not sure. Obviously, sports people are obviously. Give it to me. Give it to me. Tell me that, Dave. You know.
Sports writers have the best metaphors. Period. That's why you want them covering cybersecurity. I'm giving.
Well, maybe
that's for me.
Let me have one more crack. They have also footballers' tents. Do you have that? You know, when footballers kind of reliving the whatever they're doing in the UK, they'll be like, I was running down the pitch and I had the ball with me and I had, and they have this weird grammar that they use. So that might be a good one for them.
All right, I'll give you one for that. All right, let's go back to the bad ideas. Well, this one just got a single vote, but I just like it. Just throwing it in there. Just quickly respond. Why should we store all cyber podcasts on 8-track tape, Dave?
Well, I think we can all agree that 8-track tape has stood the test of time. It is durable. There's no EMP pulse powerful enough to wipe clean an 8-track tape.
Yeah.
What do you think, Carl?
And also, you'd never have too many podcasts. A lot of people get stressed out that they have too many podcasts to listen to and not enough time. Within an 8-track, you'll have a limited amount of podcast room.
I don't know how I feel about that one. But Dave, I'm giving you that. Hold on. Let's get to a couple more here. I don't want to go. There's one that's a little political. I don't want to jump down that one. Hey, get your cybersecurity coverage from CNN. So we talk about mainstream media. So why should that's where we consume all our cybersecurity news? Actually, Carl, we'll start with you.
I have no idea. I don't watch CNN. I'm in the UK.
You don't get CNN? They've got CNN
Well,
in the UK.
We do. But I wouldn't get all my news any place because I don't even know any of the sports. Sorry, dude. I just don't CNN.
Come on, Dave, help me out here.
I'm too highbrow.
Why
Dave,
should we
help
get
me
all
out.
our cybersecurity from CNN?
Yeah.
Why should you get it? Why do you want to do this?
Well, because you don't want to be overburdened with too much lingo, too many terms. I mean, also it's good. They take so many commercial breaks that it's great to be able to go get a snack or something like that. Come back, have a beer. You can consume it at your own pace.
All right, I like it. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to roll into one more thing right here. So hold on, listen.
It's time to play What's Worse?
All right, for those of you who listen to the CISO Security Vendor Relationship Podcast, you know this show. What this show is I present two scenarios, actually chosen by Larry Rosen, our winner from last week's Best Bad Idea. And you, Carl, and also Dave, have to determine which of these horrible ideas is worse. Now, they were actually highly voted ideas for the Department of Yes. One of them was, at least, excuse me. But I didn't want to use it because I wanted to use it here in the What's Worse. So here they are. Dave, I'll have you answer first. Then, Carl, you can agree or disagree and explain why. So automate trolling of anyone that makes an objectionable cyber media post. That's one. Or create random acronyms for cyber terms and push it enough until Gartner has it in their top quadrant. Which one is worse?
I'll say automated trolling.
Automated troll. Why is automated trolling worse?
Because I don't like trolls.
That's it. You just don't like trolls.
I don't like either of these things, David.
Well, you have to. The whole thing. That's the point of What's Worse. You're not going to like either one. Have you not figured out the point of this darn game?
Carol, what are your thoughts?
Wouldn't it be worse than the Gartner quadrant, right? Because Gartner's already got so many acronyms there.
So you'd prefer over. So if you had to choose one of these two, automated trolling of anyone that makes an objectionable cyber media post, or create random acronyms and cyber terms and push it until Gartner has it in the top quadrant, you would prefer the Gartner situation than the trolling, or which one? Yeah.
I would.
So you think trolling is worse?
Yes.
Okay, explain. Why is trolling worse?
Oh, this is too hard.
This is the game. What is wrong with the two of you? This is the game. Play along.
You're lovely people.
By the way, I'm going to say this to the chat room. Chat room, dump on them. Dump on them.
David, are you going to take your ball and go home?
What do you think, Dave? What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, what do you think, David? Yeah, what do you think?
Definitely automating trolling is worse because you don't want to magnify trolling. I think creating random acronyms of cyber terms and pushing until Gartner has in their top quadrant is a great idea, because anything to make Gartner more confused, the cyber media more confused, generates more money for you because you can have more stuff to talk about and more vendors selling on that kind of stuff. So that's a great idea. In fact, I think it's a fabulous idea.
I would say most people go to Gartner to get information and try and learn about stuff. And by throwing loads of acronyms that mean nonsense, you're just making a whole disinformation world within the cybersecurity industry.
Yeah, but is it? So there, I think that's what we can isolate it to. What is worse, a world of trolling or a world of disinformation? Let's isolate it down to that.
Yeah. The world we have today, or a world of isolation? I don't know. We have both.
What do you think, Dave? What's worse, a world of trolling or a world of disinformation?
Disinformation's worse.
You think disinformation? I think trolling's worse.
Well,
I think you're wrong.
We agree to disagree.
There we go. That's fine. We can totally. But disinformation. You know what? I'm turning around. You're right. Disinformation is right.
Mean. Yeah, disinformation is
greatly damaging across the thing.
Yeah.
You know what? I changed my tune. You're correct. Disinformation is worse.
Thank you very much.
All right. Dave wins. Hold it.
Listeners.
I'm gonna.
Thank God you're here, Dave.
That's the winner. Dave wins.
I get a gold star.
Dave. You get a gold star. All right.
You.
Let's get back to the show. We got a ton of questions that came in. By the way, if anyone wants to join us on camera, I mentioned if you just type "bring me on," you can join us on camera. Bisner just sparked David Spark. Good job. All right.
I bet you don't get that a lot.
No, I haven't. That's the first time. All right. This just got voted up. Do you think that the cyber media has responsibility to address less cyber-oriented folks so they would be more aware of risks to their companies, families, etc., or that cyber media should have the responsibility just to address the cyber community? Dave, I think you're doing both because your Hacking Humans show has, I know, crossed over. Explain.
Yes, I do believe those of us who have expert domain knowledge have a responsibility to share that knowledge with everyone else, especially when it could help their well-being and their safety. So I think, just like volunteering at your local food pantry is a good thing. I think those of us who can help, those of us who have the information and are also good communicators have a responsibility to be out there sharing with the general public.
Nice to get paid though too, right, Dave? I mean, we do it
Oh,
as
Mike is
jobs.
awesome. Yeah, sure.
No, but what I have discovered is that there is an audience for information in different ways. And like what you're doing with Hacking Humans, which is an extraordinarily digestible show for a non-tech audience. And yet there is a non-tech audience that wants information about cybersecurity for their own safety and other.
I would say the same thing about Smashing Security. I think they're extraordinarily accessible, and they are first entertaining. It's that whole thing about the spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're entertaining first, so people come to laugh, and if you're not careful, you might learn something.
Yeah.
Carol?
Yeah, we hide it in the jam, the spoonful, jam and the pill inside. It's my grandmother used to do to me. Awful. No, it's really important. I agree. I mean, but I think there's all types of educators. I think it's very important to have educators for the upper echelons, right? Because, those that all of us here think we know a lot about tech. I bet there could be any conference we go to and we come away learning 10,000 things. We know this much, right? Of this huge, vast, growing swamp of tech. So none of us are experts anymore, but we might know a lot about a tiny little slice. And sorry, you're going to say something.
What I was saying is, people think just because and you must, the two of you, what am I saying? You must get the same thing. They must see you as cybersecurity experts, to which I always point out, all of my knowledge is second degree, 100% of it. I am not a cybersecurity practitioner, yet I'm fortunate to have interviewed so many smart people that I've been able to glean a lot of knowledge as a result, but I am not an expert by any stretch. So, I mean, it is all second degree knowledge, all of it.
Yeah,
And
but
I'm going to assume you guys are in the same,
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, neither of you are practitioners, so you're in the same boat as I am.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd argue that we are practitioners, all three of us. I mean, spreading the word is part of the job, right?
Yes, it is part of the job, but I've never been responsible for implementing outside of, and again, I know this is part of the job, like training people about cybersecurity media, which is what we do at a certain level. I've never actually held a title in cybersecurity.
Yeah. No. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I once released Self-as Antivirus in Klingon, so there's that.
I'm sorry, what?
For real. We got some guy on the internet for $1,000 who translated all the strings, the visible strings, into Klingon. And then we launched it as when Star Trek put out its latest movie after a huge hiatus. And it went great, except one, even though we said, don't install this at work no matter what, one did. And then they couldn't get out of it because they didn't have Klingon. So we had to get the translator in touch.
So there's now some official butt kissing is coming on from the community to us. So I appreciate that. And here one comes from Yoad again. He starts off, to the amazing podcasters. So he's buttering you up, but he does. He says, how do you fuel this magnetic energy and excitement when broadcasting? So I think he's just looking for advice just some basic advice on broadcasting and tips, because I'm sure there's many people out there that want to do media themselves as well. What are you sort of just for, I guess, to create entertainment content that is informative? What's your general advice? Either of you.
Yeah, I would say it's think of it like you're starting a band in your garage, right? That's the way to think about it. Like, you want to practice and you want to get it right before you go out there in the baptism of fire. Sure, you go to the park and make a song, but if it's really crap, people go, "Oh, don't go see them. We saw them. It was awful." So hone your craft. And there's a lot of noise out there right now. Everyone's starting a new podcast, which is, same as blogs were 10 years ago. I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing. But if you want to stand above the crowd, you got to have good content, good voice, good, and a good format. I think I like a format, but not, some people like loose, but I like format.
And by the way, I got another question comes out. I want you to answer this one. The question was just answered, and also answer this one from Dustin Sachs, because this is something that I'm personally obsessed with, because I've been in media for decades and I see things that are successful fall apart, and I'm chronically concerned about that. So he asked, what methods do you find yourself using to keep your content fresh and different from the sea of other podcasts, or just, I would say, also other media in general?
Good, Dave. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think if Steve Martin said in his biography, "Be so good they can't ignore you," and to Carol's point, a lot of that is practice. Go back and listen to the first couple months of the Cyberwire. I'm not the same person I was back then.
Oh yeah. Listen to the first couple months of my show too. Yeah.
Get a couple thousand episodes under your belt, and you start to figure this stuff out. What I refer to it as, you build up a bag of tricks, right? So if I have to do a half-hour interview with somebody, at this point I can walk in, do the interview. I don't need to have any prep. Because if I had to, I always prep for interviews, but if in a pinch, if I had to, I could walk in and do an interview.
I'm the same way, Dave.
Because you have a bag of tricks, right?
Yeah.
How do you get that bag of tricks? By doing this, and by figuring out that's a universal question that I can use for anybody at any time. Here's a great follow-up question to that.
What's your favorite color?
No, hey, you know what? I have a few favorite questions, so I'm interested. What's your universal question that you think works all the time? Carol, go. What do you got?
Tell me about you. It seems to work a lot.
Tell me.
No, but tell me about your job. Tell me who you are. Like, if I've gone in blind,
don't you think that's a little too vague? That could go in 23 different directions.
I use it every single time, whether I've done my research or not, because I want them to feel comfortable, and I know what they know is them. Good. So they talk about
Dave,
themselves.
Do you have a universal question that works?
Yeah. Tell me about your career journey. How did you get your start, and what led you to where you are today?
So mine is a variation of that. And that is, think about where you are today and where you started. What were some of the biggest, hurdles, unexpected challenges, and unexpected benefits along the way? That I have found always works. Now, we got a question here from Jenna Preston, which I love. It got voted up a little bit. Do you feel respected by the security community as journalists? Is it anything like marketing where you're treated like smelly socks? By the way, Jenna, I don't treat you like smelly socks. I don't feel that I treat marketing like smelling socks, but I do know that they have a job to do. That's the other thing. I respect that people have a job to do as well. Mm-hmm. How do you feel that you're respected in the community?
I think it's like people, though. Like, good people respect you because they give you a chance. Bad people don't. There's both in all industries. And your job is to slalom those waters with as least, friction as possible. So don't overthink bad interactions, I think, is the best advice I could give. If you're feeling, you're not getting respect, you'll earn it, right? And you know what? If you don't earn it, just grab it if you deserve it. Go for it. And some people have a much harder time in this industry than others. And I've seen people slide in, but they always fall on their face if they don't have a good, good basis, a good foundation underneath them. Mm-hmm. Got to know your stuff. Yeah.
Dave?
I think, I don't know if this is more than most industries, but certainly cybersecurity has more than its fair share of rock stars who are, these people who are taken very seriously, given a lot of leeway to do whatever they want to do. Dress however they want to dress, bathe in whatever frequency they want to bathe or not. And sometimes, I've crossed paths with some of those people, and they sniff at you and they look down at you because there's no possible way why is their time worth talking to you? So if you establish that quickly, you get the information you want from them or you need from them, and then you never speak to them again. I have a philosophy that if someone is disrespectful to me or anyone on our staff, they will not be on our show. I don't care how important they are. I don't care how high their status is. I have spiked interviews, good interviews, really good content. I have spiked interviews because the person was a jerk off the air. And
really?
Yeah.
But hold on, wait, Dave, let's stop for a second. Did you ever think maybe you deserved it?
Sure.
Still my show.
It's still my show. I could be a jerk. What's wrong with me? I could be the jerk.
Only room for one jerk here, and it's this guy. Carol can tell me. I've guested on Smashing many a times. I can be a royal jerk when I want to. So, absolutely.
No.
I will say this: I am actually so pleasantly surprised about all the nice comments that I get about our shows, and I'm always sort of stunned and appreciative of it. In a much younger version of me, I would let something like that go to my head. But I will tell you the baptism by fire that I had that allowed that not to go to my head is that I used to do stand-up comedy for many, many years. And I had very successful shows, and the next one would be a horror show. So I know from one to the next, you can do very well and then do very poorly. And it is all a long ride. And going to the comment that you said earlier, and I've said this about video production, I would say this about podcasting, the way to make a great podcast, the way to make great video is make a lot of bad ones first. That's pretty much it.
Yep.
If you have not registered for next week's video chat, please do that. Please do that. By the way, the autofocus on my camera is driving me crazy. I'm assuming it's driving everyone else crazy, and I hate this camera. So I will find out what the name of this camera is and remind everyone not to purchase it. But luckily, in a few weeks, I will be getting the new camera that I ordered, which is the same as the old one, which worked perfectly fine. All right, we just got about 9 minutes left, and or less. No, 9 minutes left. They want
a joke. Your people want a joke, David Spark.
You know what? I will find. I have a bit that I used to do. I'm going to find this for everyone.
A bit? Excellent. Okay.
No, I'm not going to do it. It's many, many, many years old. I did about the video game The Sims. I think I've shared this with people before, since it's tech related. Here, I'm copying and pasting it here for people to watch later. Watch it later. Here you go. That's it. It's very, very old. I think possibly Dutch just pasted it in there as well. But stick around for our one-on-one meetups afterwards. Please stick around for that. That link will change in just a few minutes. Leave that up there at 5 minutes before we'll do our one-on-one meetups at the end. All right, let us go to this is a good question from Kevin Hackinson. Yes. Seems like overall the media seems to focus on breaking news and less on long form and deeper topics. Thoughts on the balance there? I can understand why they do breaking news too. Not a lot of cybersecurity breaks outside of breaches. Dave, what's your take?
I think a large part of that. Well, but I think a large part of what we're seeing is the collapse of print media. Newspapers were funded by classified ads, and because of classified ads, big city newspapers had foreign bureaus. They had reporters who could take 6 months to work on a story.
It's costly.
Yeah. That's gone. It's very expensive to do that, and we don't have that anymore.
And also, where are they getting their news from, right? So companies are providing a lot of, press releases and news tips and saying, here's a new product, here's some new research, here's this, here's that. And they're not going to go forward. A bad news story is what really, gets the top headline, and no company is going forward going, hey, we were breached. It's really rare you get that, right? They hide it like anything, and that becomes more delicious story. So people go after.
But I think what's also, are those occasions how well certain companies handle a breach. Like, this is, like being in PR, Carl, the ones that handle it beautifully, and they know how bad it is. They recognize it. They own it. And they understand that it's an evolving story. Talk to that a little bit, like sort of the kudos to those companies that handle it well and how they weather the storm.
It's a huge deal, and it's disgusting somehow how companies are actually doing these things. So, everything, like we said, everyone makes a mistake. Even big companies can make a mistake, and it can have a huge impact on millions of people. When they deny responsibility, like I make a joke on my show all the time going, oh, I didn't see the sorry in that statement, that's 2 weeks late to the people that have been paying for this service and weren't even told that they've just gotten all their data snarfled away by some third party due to an Amazon cloud thing that was left open because it was badly configured. There's a sorry that belongs there.
Privacy is very important to us.
Yeah.
No, I just called Verizon. They told me that when I called them on the phone.
That's my big beef. You asked once, what should media be covering and that they're not, I think, is the discrepancy between what their legal and their privacy terms and conditions stipulate and what they say on their website. Like, it is astounding the differences you can see, right? And I always tell people, read the T's and C's, and they hate it, but it is shocking. It is shocking to see what they actually legally are committing to, and what they're feeding you is bullshit.
All right, I want to wrap this up. We have exactly 5 minutes left, and I want to the two of you essentially have closing comments or your advice to the community and what you suggest and how you feel about cyber media going forward, what you hope for it in 2021. But Andrew, please change the link at the bottom to our Icebreaker meetup. We will all be in the Icebreaker meetup as well. So make sure you click on that link when he changes. Oh, it's been changed right now. Excellent. So I'll ask you, Carol, what are your hopes for 2021? And do you have different plans for yourself in smashing security in 2021?
I think we still have a big pandemic to deal with here in the UK. So really, it's just like steady she goes. Yeah, exactly. So I think educating ourselves, this is the world, the time of disinformation and misinformation. And our job is to try and stay educated. In our podcast, all of us, I know, are committed to trying to do the best stories that we can for the people that listen to the show. We try and do our research. We do our best to do it, but we need the community too to help us. So if we get things wrong, tell us, right? Because we can fix it. And it's great when an early adopter finds the mistake early on in the process, and it only had gone up to 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people rather than 10,000, 20,000, 50,000.
I am so thankful when listeners catch a mistake and allows me to fix it. I'm so appreciative of that. Dave, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We all want to get it right. And it's painful when you don't, but how you respond is very important. And I think, again, building long-term goodwill with your audience, that comes from approaching these things from the right direction.
Mm-hmm. So any advice, though, about media you have grown the Cyberwire quite dramatically. Can you generally talk about sort of how you want to sort of engage the audience in 2021?
Well, I would say, look, it's, I think you have to be careful about where you're getting your information these days, because more than ever, there are high profile, easily accessible sources of misinformation, and the blatantness of misinformation is things that I think a few years ago we wouldn't have thought were possible, that you couldn't say that and not be laughed at, and now people are saying things as if they're true, fake news, alternate facts, all that kind of stuff. So be sure to get outside of your bubble. I would also say I am a big believer in having a toolkit of skeptical thinking, of being able to, when you see information put in front of you, to be able to ask yourself the who, what, when, where, how, the why, who's telling me this and what's in it for them. So you can ask those questions in your own mind to make sure that you're not getting fooled. And I think it was Richard Feynman who said, "You're the easiest person to be fooled."
So let me ask this quick question. We got 2 minutes, exactly less than 2 minutes left. So it's super quick answers from both of you. And darn this camera. Quick question from Dutch Schwartz. Is there a question that your guests routinely struggle with? And if so, why? Carol, is there a question?
A question?
A question they struggle with, your guests, do you think?
Probably when you ask about where they screwed up, like what was the biggest, most.
They don't embrace it. I find people like to embrace it.
Oh, well, maybe you got different guests than us. I don't know.
They don't want to talk about the screw up that happened that week, but they'll talk about the one that happened 5 years ago. Dave?
Yeah, they've got a nice narrative around it.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think like we have a show called Career Notes where we talk about people's careers and I ask them, how do you want to be remembered? And that quite often sets them back on their heels because I think they don't want to think about their mortality. But also I think it's hard for a lot of people to be introspective that way.
That's a really good and tough question. A good question and a tough one to answer. I agree. All right, we're gonna wrap this sucker up. Carol, awesome. Thank you very much. Carol Tario, who is the, excuse me, let me show my screen for a second here. I got to share my screen as we wrap up the last 30 seconds of this darn show. It is Carol Tario, who is the producer and co-host of Smashing Security. She was, I'm sorry, whoops. Here it goes. And also Dave Bittner, producer and co-host of The Cyberwire. Thank you so much for joining me. I knew you would be very entertaining. This would be the perfect show to start 2021. Stick around for our icebreaker. Click the link at the very bottom. Also, if you want to sponsor a video chat, email me at david@cisoseries.com. We got them going on every Friday. Join us. Andrew, take us out.